Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to be messing with the air cleaner assembly on the Sportster. That's the one I have on there right now. And I'm going to be changing that to a different one. The one that I purchased is a Roland Sands design. It's a turbine style. We'll see that in just a little bit once we get her open. I'm going to do this change for a couple reasons. Two main ones that I really don't care for. Two main things I really don't care about this particular air cleaner is number one, with how it's mounted. It's kind of hard to see, but pretty much it just bolts straight to the carburetor, and that is the only support. So all of the weight of my housing is being supported by the carburetor. Didn't really care for that. To be honest, it hasn't caused me any real issues. I've been running this air cleaner, I think, for 2 years with no real issue because of that. But it's just one of those things that's always in the head in my head is that I have that weight all sitting out there on that carburetor. Maybe not a big deal, but the new one will address that. The second thing is I use these little breather bolts on each cylinder to exhaust the pressure, to vent the gases off. Each one has a little screen on it, and then it also has a filter in it. These are ones I bought separate just for that purpose. Low RPMs, kind of putting around town, they work pretty good. Actually, they don't work bad, but the issue is when you get the higher RPMs and the more pressures you're venting off, you tend to get like a little oily mist that kind of runs down the bike. So I get a lot of oily mist on my cover for my oil tank. I'll get an oily mist on here and then on my head and stuff, so I'll have to wipe all that off. Just seems to overcome these and throws that oily mist out there. So while I don't have to worry about things downstream rusting because they're all well oiled, I don't like that. So the new one will address that as well. It goes back to the style where you have the vent bolts that will vent into the breather itself, and they'll take it back into the intake. So while that's not a perfect design, also for me, I think it's better than just blowing the oily mist all over. So those are the two things that I wish to overcome. Those are the two issues that I plan to make better with the new style. Again, I've had this one for like 2 years at least. I've had no issues with it. It's worked well. It's time to take the filter out and clean it. That's kind of what prompted all this. I'm due to clean the filter anyway. Things I like about it is I do like the style. I think it's a very stylish, very pretty housing. That's why I bought it. That's why I put it on there. It's performed well. I've had no issues, and it looks good. The other thing that I like is I like the size of it. It's very proportional to the rest of the Sportster. Then B, it doesn't interfere. It kind of sits up close enough to the bike, and it's not as big, so it doesn't interfere with my leg placement. I have the more forward controls on this, so this does not interfere with my leg or my knee or anything using my forward controls. I bought one housing. It was a Kuryakin, the kind with the butterflies on the front that open and close based on your vacuum. And that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. It was a neat looking one. I think I have a video of that on this bike running somewhere on my channel. But that one did. It just stuck out too far, and so I could really only get my foot up kind of on the outside part of the peg here because my leg was hitting on that. So we'll see what the new one looks like when I put it on there. I think it's just a bit bigger than this one, but until we get it on, there's no good way to know. So Alright, switch over to the chesty mount. We'll see how that does. I don't have a really good stand for this. The one that I bought didn't come with instructions, so I watched a video on it. And, you know, it's not too hard. I think Revzilla gave it a 2 out of 3 beards. I think that was a little bit pessimistic on their part. Yeah, pretty dirty in here. Get this off. So we're going to put the new style on. I've taken the old one off. I have to take these off yet. And then we'll start with the new one. Another little note that I'll throw in is while you have the old one off and you're getting ready to put the new one on, don't neglect, it's a good time. You can get in here, you've got access to this housing, your floats and all that. Get yourself some carburetor cleaner or something, get yourself a rag, kind of get all your buildup out of there and work on that a little bit. You might as well, while you have access to it. It's certainly not going to hurt. Okay, so not really an unboxing video, but just to show you what I got here in the kit. Here's a gasket, which will go on the carburetor. Here are 2 identical vent bolts with spacers, so these will screw onto the top of the heads. And then each one will have a spacer. A little baggie that has just a little bit of hardware. And it's got your rubber vent tubes, I guess we'll call them. I'll show you how that works once you get the backing plate on. Got your little nose cone that'll go over the top and go on there like that. And the actual housing itself. So we'll see. We'll get her apart. Okay, so kind of the first step for me, once I have the old housing off, done a little cleaning in there. Yes, I'm going to put the breather bolts in here with the spacers. And the reason why I do that is because that is going to provide some of the support for your filter. So that'll go on there roughly like that. Then each one of those will come through and they'll bolt on here. And that will give you some support for this housing. Here's the backing plate of that one, of the new one. It's a bit heavier than the old one. I think all in all, this whole piece, I'm not sure where I got the old one, but the new one just seems to be very well built. Very nice quality stuff. So we'll get these bad boys and just screw them one in each. Do not use Loctite on these. There's no Loctite necessary for these 2 bolts. When you put the 3 bolts in here, you will Loctite those. But do not Loctite these. It is not necessary. So kind of as a point of correction, when you do put these breather bolts on, they go through the backing plate. So with the spacer on the back here, so thin part, the more narrow end will go up against your cylinder, and the wider part will go up against the back of your plate. Pretty sure that's how that's supposed to be. Yeah, I think that's how it's supposed to go. And then this will bolt through the plate and hold it on. Okay, so kind of how I went about it was I got the plate up there. Make sure you get your gasket behind there. You can either just try to stick it to there, maybe put a little tiny bit of your Loctite on there to hold it in place while you get your screw set up. I put my 3 screws in, blue Loctite at each one. Just got them started. Got these in, they're not tight, just got them started. Got kind of everything lined up, haven't really tightened everything down yet. Then I start working on these. Get these 3 tight to the carburetor. Then I will tighten these down. Nothing has to be ungodly tight. You don't want to strip anything out. But you want it to not rattle around or come loose on you. Not sure the exact size. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch socket on these. It seems to work pretty good. So we'll get those tightened down and then we'll go from there. Alright, get everything snug down. Like I said, you want things snug, but you don't want to over tighten anything. You don't want to mess up the threads on your cylinder, and you don't want to mess up the threads on your carburetor. So what I did, like I said, got everything loose, got it all set, and then I just kind of got everything tight, and then I re-tightened. Then on these, I just kind of bounce back and forth, pulling them up until everything is nice and firm. Next thing that you want to do is you've got these little rubber directional things. I believe they are directional. Should be a right and a left here. Yeah, probably just have to figure it out because I don't see an R on either one. I don't see anything that discerns on one way or the other. But pretty much what this is for, let's get down to one here, is this will go underneath, is that a word, overneath? Go over top of your breather bolt. And it sits down in this channel and will direct the vented vapors, once I get it on there right, into your throttle body. I don't know if that feels right. They are directional, so this one has to go on this side. So I'll play with that. Just make sure that each one, like I said, sits down in this recessed channel. It does not sit up above it because there will be a plate that will cover this. Alright, then once you get those 2 things on, like I said, there's a plate as part of the kit. Just sits down in there. That seals all that up. I'm going to put the filter on. That will hold the plate on, hopefully. Well, they say there's always something, and as is typical. So here's my little nose cone. That's what I'm calling it, nose cone. And that will screw onto the air breather and stick out the front here. So what goes through the back, that sits on the front. Sticks out, looks really nice. Problem was that the bolt that they sent me go through the back here. It's weird because if you look inside of the housing, I can't really show it, but there's edges in there like they're made to hold a bolt, the shoulders of a bolt. The bolt they sent me was just a 4th Allen head bolt like those 3, so basically I got 4 identical bolts. That bolt would not screw into the back of here. So I had to go digging through my bolt bin. I found a bolt which will work. So lucky me, we'll throw some Loctite on it, run her through the back there, and continue on. Alright, so this thing's kind of a pain in the ass to get it going. What I basically did was I started 2 bolts. Opposite sides is very loose. I'll go through and just one by one add the bolts in after that. Another thing to note is that on this style of filter, you'll have one pleat It is like, I think that's like a crimped aluminum. So if you don't want to do that, you can face that down, you can face it towards the back, whatever you want to do, but just make sure you have your filter orientated appropriately before you tighten everything down. Alright, and then we're all done. So nothing real difficult. So when I was finishing up these bolts, just come full circle. I had the two in. I kind of started on both sides. I put blue Loctite on each one. You don't have to get real crazy. I just got them in one at a time. Everything loose. Made sure that I was set here. Made sure that my filter back was set. You know, everything got lined up how I want it to be. And I started tightening. I just kind of bounced in a star pattern, so everything kind of pulled down even and tight, and I didn't over tighten one side. Nothing has to be, again, ungodly tight. You just want it not to rattle loose, and the blue Loctite will help with that. So not really a hard install. I had all the tools I needed, which is just Allen wrench, the special tool I needed to get those breathers off that came with that, just a socket, 3/4 inch socket, and then the ratchet driver. That's really about it. Pretty easy, nothing too hard. I was lucky enough that I had the bolt that fit on that screwed in from the back side, because the one they sent me didn't work. Had I not had that, I would have had to go down to the store and pick one up. But yeah, that's how it looks. No doubt that there's a lot of filter there, so a lot of airflow. As far as restricting my leg, I think that'll be all right. I can get on there. It's that little pointy thing. My shin sits just behind that, so it won't be bad. Just another one of those things that you have to be aware of. After a while, you won't even notice it. I don't know. We'll have to see. My foot on the brake. The one does stick out a little bit farther than the other one did. It does stick out a little farther than the other one. I think I'll still better use my brake and all that. We'll try it for a little bit. We'll see what we think.